Hey everybody, welcome to another fabulous episode of the Sharon Show. I'm here with my partner in crime, Sharon, and today Sharon has the quote.
Oh, yes, I do, actually.
Ooh.
I'm so excited to read this.
Yeah.
I just heard it this past week, and I'm like, oh my God, this is crazy.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Go ahead.
Reading from the Bhagavad Gita, I believe it's like part 2. It says, halfway through verse 11, the wise grieve neither for the living nor for the dead. There has never been a time when you and I and the kings gathered here have not existed, nor will there be a time when we will cease to exist. As the same person inhabits the body through childhood, youth, and old age, so too at the time of death, he attains another body. The wise are not deluded by these changes.
Ooh, that was a good one.
Really good.
Yeah, I like that because, we're going to talk about the Bhagavad Gita a little later, but it's Krishna talking to Arjuna, and Arjuna is faltering because he has to fight this war and he has to fight against all these people he knew. It's like everybody in the kingdom that picks the wrong side, that picks the side, I think, of his cousin that's trying to be the king, and he's like a real jerk. But it's like his teacher, the guy who taught him how, Arjun is this great warrior. He's a good bowman. And it's the guy who taught him how to do that. He's got to fight, he's got to fight his spiritual master, all these people. He's like, I don't want to kill him. And Krishna's like, you can't kill him.
It's awesome.
Yeah. And I pulled a card before we started. It fell out. It's the Queen of Swords. And this is from
Queens lately.
Yeah, and this is from the Druid Craft Tarot. Let's see if you can see. Yeah, Queenie of Swords, and it's a little blurry, but there you go. It's really cool. It's a chick on a wooden throne with a sword. It looks like maybe a big dagger. It's a hobbit sword. It's Sting.
Did we say that was me wands? Sorry.
Sharon, you can't be
or maybe you said Queen of Swords. Now I'm confused. I feel like on a previous episode, you said I was one or the other, and I can't remember which one. Whatever.
Carrie should know. Carrie, comment below. You'll know. You pay attention. We don't know.
I forget.
So, and you see the tree in the background too. It's really cool.
Oh, like a bonsai, like a Japanese bonsai tree.
Yeah.
Ooh, synchronistic. We might talk about Japanese stuff later. Not super Japanese, but we might bring something up.
And no, I hear you. Right. And this card, it represents the feminine energy, and it's really all about air because it's swords. So it's about thoughts and ideas and anything in that realm. So I think it's a good card for this episode because we're going to be talking about rebirth, and we just did a couple episodes about death, so we're going to get into these concepts of what about after death. So we're going to be investigating all these ideas, and it's kind of a tender subject, I guess you could say, because of everybody's belief systems. Everybody has like different ways that they think and all these things that are going to happen. So it's a good way to kind of tread lightly because we're going to be doing it from the feminine point of view of care. So yeah,
absolutely.
Go ahead. I was going to say we're going to open up the show because we just talked about death, like I said, in the past 2 episodes. So we're going to be talking about a story where I had a near-death experience, kind of. Not the kind you read about where I was like pronounced dead and all that, and I was like saw my body. This is just the time I almost died. And I mean, I've almost died a few times. I mean, I was in the Marine Corps. I guess you could say I almost died every time I was on a plane that landed on a carrier. So anyway, the story I'm going to be telling was about, I think it was around 2008. And I might have told the story before, so I'll tell a quicker version. But and I was in Ocean City, Maryland with a bunch of friends, and we were there from like Thursday to Monday, I think. And we were there for a car show, and it was September, and there's this hurricane that was offshore, and it was just creating this insane insane undertow at the beach. So there was no swimming, there's no lifeguards, it was all closed for the weekend or whatever. So the last day we were there, that Sunday, it was a nicer day. The water was still pretty crazy, but a friend and I decided to go investigate and maybe go get our feet wet.
Oh, get your feet wet.
Exactly. So when we went down there, we had our bathing suits, and we realized it was pretty insane. So we're just standing on the edge of the water, letting the waves come in and like get our feet, not even up to our knees really. And we're just talking, and we're actually talking about what you do if you get stuck in an undertow. And what you're supposed to do is not fight against the current. You're supposed to swim parallel to the shore, basically, because what happens is it's just like an eddy. It's like this big cycle. We'll be talking about that later. And so like if you're on the shore, the wave comes in and then it sucks out, and it comes like and we could see it too. And there's actually two that we could see. And there's like I didn't really notice it at first, but we'll get there. There's like a sandbar in the middle. So anyway, I'm standing there with my friend, and the next thing I know, a wave comes in, and then all the sand under my feet basically just disappears.
Oh, hell no.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure people have been to the beach before, and the waves come in and you could just kind of sink into the sand, and it's pretty cool. Well, I got pulled into the water.
A giant 6'4" man gets pulled into the water.
I got pulled in, and I felt myself getting pulled, and I just started kind of bouncing. Because what I do when I'm swimming, I'll just bounce. If I'm not over my head, or if I'm close, I'll just bounce. So I was bouncing. And then I even said to my friend, I'm like, I guess I'll see you later. Right. As I was getting pulled out. I mean, I'm like funny till the end. So, and he just looked
you manifested that.
Yeah.
You did see him later.
Probably. So as I'm bouncing out, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to kind of like, I don't really know what I'm thinking at this time. Like, I'm just kind of, it's like a moment when a car accident happens and everything just is out of your control. I'm just like, shit, I'm not in control anymore. So I'm bouncing, and the waves are hitting me. And I'm treading water, and I bounce up and I tread water. And then all of a sudden I can't feel the ground anymore because I'm out, over my head or whatever. And I don't want to go under too far. I'm not that brave. I'm not like trying to go to the bottom. So I started to just tread water, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, I just have to swim parallel to the shore. This is going to be and I'm looking, I can't even really see the shore because the waves are over my head. And I basically am just, like laying back. And that's the thing. If anybody's ever stuck in a situation where you're going to drown, just lay on your back with your head up. It's like the best way you float, especially in salt water, much more buoyant. And I started to feel this terror come up, like creep up my spine, because I'm like, shit, is this it? Am I going to fucking die out here? And I remember there was this moment where I made a conscious decision. I'm like, no, I can't panic. So I kind of just pushed it down, and I just kept treading water. And I'm like, all right, I'm just going to time my breath with the waves. So the wave would like crash over my head. I'd like jump up, take a breath, try to clear my eyes. And after a while, like it was getting my eyes, I couldn't even really see. And it went on like that. I don't know how long it went on like that for. I mean, it felt like an eternity. It was a while, maybe 5 minutes, something like that. Maybe between 5 and 10 minutes. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I mean, I'm just like, all these thoughts are going in my head. Like, what am I going to float out to sea? Like, what the hell is going to happen? But out of nowhere, because I'm kind of like going up and down, I hit the ground again. I could feel the sand. I was like, okay. So I just start kind of bouncing, like I said, toward where it was getting shallower,
More
so
land.
I'm going. And then I find myself on the sandbar. So picture, here's the beach. And then right in front of it, there's these two swirling pools. And then in the middle, there's this sandbar that went out. So I was able to walk back, and I was out a good couple 100 yards, I would say. I felt like I probably walked a couple football fields in. And I don't know. I mean, it's hard because it was like 14 years ago, and the mind plays a lot of tricks. So it was at least 100 yards, we'll say, maybe a little longer. So I was just able to walk back in, and the water wasn't really that high at all, and the sand was really hard. So I guess what happened was the water was just packing the sand in the middle. So I was able to walk back out there, and by that time there was really no one on the beach. There was just these two ladies or girls or whatever, and they were freaking out, and my friend was freaking out. So I got back there, and he's like, oh my God, what happened? I just kind of like fell on the beach and just laid down. Like, I just need to lay here for a minute and take a breather. I'm pretty exhausted. And after that, we just went inside the hotel into the hot tub and just like sat in the hot tub. And I like contemplated the fact that I almost died.
Oh my.
But the reason I want to tell this story and share it with people is because you can use it as an allegory to anywhere in life where you think you're stuck. Sometimes you think you're stuck and you can't see a way out of any situation, whatever the situation is. And it's like divine intervention. You really never know. It's beyond our comprehension what can come and help and save us. For me, it was just a sandbar that I didn't even see. And
yeah, but could it be you also said, I'm not giving in to this fear?
yeah, well, that's what it was, right? So if you're in a situation, thank you for saying that. If you're in a situation where you feel like that and you feel there's no way out, the best thing to do is to not despair and just keep doing what you're doing and plugging along. And eventually a way will be provided. I was like Moses. I like parted the sea.
Dude.
I was Brandos. I had my staff.
Yes. That's awesome.
Can't see me. See?
Well, what's funny is that in a early episode that we did, I think it was episode 1. We talked about, because I recently went back to hear it. And I talked about the laryngospasms that I used to get and how they would basically close my voice box for an indeterminate amount of time that I did not know. And I had to pretend that I was holding my breath on purpose and then just wait until, because if you panic, you want to breathe when you're panicking. So your heart wants to race and you can't breathe. So you have to calm yourself down. And I would have to just calm myself down and tell myself, I'm holding my breath. And then I'd have to wait until it was, until I could, okay, can I breathe? Let me try breathing again. And then if I couldn't, I'd have to wait a little bit longer. And then I would just say, you know what, if I pass out here, I pass out here, but I'm going to just keep trying to hold my breath until I can breathe again. And then when you breathe again, it wasn't like you can't be exasperated either. You have to like breathe very slowly, take your breath very slowly, because if you get exasperated again, it could you don't know if it can happen again. So you can't panic. You shouldn't panic if you want to breathe again.
Yeah, the human body is really amazing, and it gives you all these different tools. And one of them is a dump of adrenaline. But the problem is, I guess, the way that we, in the society, the way that we use our bodies, we're not always capable of accessing it when we want. Sometimes it just happens. And that adrenaline dump is one of those things. And everything starts to move really, or kind of, it really slows down, actually, I guess. Everything slows down. And if you panic, that adrenaline is going to go to basically it's going to go to waste. Like if I panic there, I'd probably just start flopping or whatever, instead of timing my rhythms and my movement and everything, and just kind of went with it. It's like that saying where they say sometimes it's good to go against the current of a river, but most times it's better to just flow with the river, unless you really have to stand up. So it's kind of just same kind of thing. And it's funny because the summer before we went, because this was in September, so the summer before, I spent a lot of time out on the river because I wasn't working. I think this is when I was right before I was DJing, I think. And I wasn't really working. I was collecting, and I worked jobs here and there and stuff. But I had a lot of time to go out with my friends in the river, and we had jet skis. My friends had jet skis. I can't remember if I had one at this point or not, but I specifically remember, though, a friend of mine, he came out with us, and I used to like to swim out to the middle of the river, even though everyone's like, that's a terrible idea. But the current wasn't too bad. So I was out there, I swam out there, and then my friend flew out there with a jet ski, and I didn't have a life jacket. I was just swimming. I was swimming raw, and he's like, follow me. And then all of a sudden he starts doing circles around me and donuts and like creating these insane waves. And I'm like laughing, but I'm like trying not to like drown, but I'm laughing. So it was kind of like a little bit of preparation for that moment,
Mm.
because I got some water in my mouth at that point. I mean, I've swam my whole life, and I don't like, if I get water, and even if I get it into my like goes the wrong way, I'm able to just not cough crazily. I could stop myself, cough a little bit, like kind of control that. So I think that definitely benefited me. It was so funny.
Wow. Yeah. That was a prep experience for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Crazy.
So what are we talking about today?
Well, because we talked about death before, now we're going to talk about what comes after death. And so we're going to talk about rebirth and resurrection and enlightenment and Christ consciousness, or whatever you might want to call these topics. They can be the first two, rebirth and resurrection, is, well, I suppose rebirth or birth, I suppose, is a physical aspect, right? When we talk about all these other terminologies, they're actually very spiritual, because if you say rebirth, it's just like in the Bible when Nicodemus was asking Jesus, like, but am I going to crawl back into my mom's womb and be born again? And he's like, no, you just don't get it. So these topics are very spiritual. They're not literal, but in some ways they are literal, but we'll get to that, I think.
Yeah, that's actually one of the first things we're going to talk about, because I figured if we're going to do an episode about birth and rebirth and all this stuff, we should talk about it in the physical realm. And we should talk about our experiences with birth. And since neither of us have any children, but we do I have nieces, and you have nephews.
Nephews and nieces. Yeah.
And nieces, yeah. So Sharon was going to overshare a story about her sister's experience with birth.
Yeah. And mind you, I was 8 years old when my brother had his first daughter. So I was pretty young. And then I had more nephews and nieces later on as my other two sisters had children. So I have a total of 9 nephews and nieces, if I remember correctly. I'm pretty sure. And I think it's kind of evened out now. It used to be a lot of girls and like one nephew, but now we have and maybe 2 nephews. But yeah, now we're getting pretty even on the children. But all of my I should say my older siblings had their children in hospitals. And my younger sister, 8 years ago, probably 9 or 10 years ago, she realized that she didn't want to go through that process in a hospital. And she decided to go the home birth route. So she found a midwife, and she did that. And I was just so proud of her, because I thought that was such an amazing thing, and it was very brave. And I just was like, it was just mind boggling to me back then. But I was like, I get it. Like, because she had told me about a documentary she watched about how they treat you in the hospital when you're having a baby, and how in a hospital, it's not like they're really caring so much for you or the baby necessarily. It's a job. They're just getting you in and out. And there's just a lot of procedure. There's not a lot of bedside manner. There are things that get injected into babies that you're not comfortable with, which she wasn't comfortable with, dare I say. And surgical procedures like removals of foreskins and things like, which she was also not comfortable with. So she chose to go the home birth route, and she did it with her 2 boys. And I'm just very proud of her for that. I think she's an amazing mom.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, My nieces were born in a hospital, but my two of them separately, obviously, but they're not twins, but one's from one brother, one's from another. And the one that was just born in August 2021, he also declined to get any of the shots. And it was a female, so there's no question of circumcision, which is great. You know, that I didn't have to have that conversation. But yeah, I think you're right. The part you're saying is it's bravery, really, and it has to do really with convenience, I guess, and fear.
A lot of fear.
And it's not, these aren't judgments. I mean, some people, I think because of their situation, it's probably better for them to be in a hospital, I guess, you know,
if there could be complications, and you know.
Yeah, because medicine is really good at trauma and like trying to save lives and childbirth and stuff like that, better than they are, I guess, at treating, we'll say, chronic conditions. We'll just leave it at that.
Indeed.
So yeah, so I think though it takes, you know, I mean, like I said, if you're in the right position, in the right spot, but it really does take a lot of bravery, because everything we're told is like, oh no, a hospital is like where you got to go. But for me, a hospital always seemed like, I don't know, just like a scary place. Like even when I was younger, going to the hospital here, whenever, like, say my mom or somebody's in the hospital and I was there, I'd be walking down the halls, and it's like they're really bright in some parts, and then some parts they're dark. I mean, I'm sure now it's all lit up, but there's just this vibe of all these sick people hanging out, and everyone's just like low and down, and maybe it was because no one was laughing. That's probably why I didn't like it.
Good call.
Why is nobody laughing here?
Why aren't there like clowns?
Yeah, right. Kidding. Like that movie.
Why aren't there people? Yeah. Why aren't there like funny things going on? To like, laughter is supposedly the best medicine.
Yeah, and they could even like hire comedians, and they could put on people's bill, so this way, you know, they could make money off it and everyone's happy. That'd be hilarious. Oh, look at that Tuma lady. You just get like hired to go there and like shit on people. Like
roast people.
Yeah, you just roast people. Oh, you got burned. I'm about to roast you now. Like, I hope you're ready for a second burning. The guy's like laid up in traction, like all burned.
But laughing.
Yeah. Like,
stretching his burn marks. Oh my God. Terrible.
Let's see. So
like if you're in a hospital, you're essentially depending on them to do something for you. So it's like you're, you know, giving up any of sometimes your rights, basically, to do what you wish or what you please. And there's lots of forms and documents, and they can't be liable and all this other crap. It's like, so then why am I here if you're supposed to be helping me?
Yeah, exactly. But there are ways to do it, because if you realize who you are and you're a living man or woman and you do have rights and they are a corporation, if you get all your ducks in a row and you do everything right, they, at the end of the day, they have to listen to what you're saying and what you're doing, because then they can become liable if they don't. So we were going to talk about a friend of ours.
Absolutely.
Should we say his name?
Yeah, I'm sure he doesn't mind.
Yeah, he has all his information. So our friend Adam, who's been on the show before, he recently had a baby also in August, right around the time I had my niece, when my niece was born. And you know more about this stuff, but he did all that stuff because he chose, from his situation, he chose that it was just better because of where he was and everything in the situation to be in a hospital. But he didn't go in there blind, and he did his research.
Yes, he did. And the documents that he used, was so very willing to share them to help other people, that there's this website called, it's part of the American States Assembly, and it's at tasa.americanstatenationals.org. We can put the link to, but on that website, he provides the documents for delivering a baby on the land and soil in a hospital. It's really cool.
Yeah, and he forego a lot of the things that we were just talking about as far as like shots and all these things that want you to do. And I think they make it just this procedure where it's like, oh yeah, you just go with this. And most people are like, oh yeah, this is normal. This is what they do, yeah, it's nuts. Like I just heard a story recently. I think it was one of the bears. They were saying how it was a woman. She went to the doctor for like a checkup. And I guess the doctor asked her 3 times to get the experimental medical serum that's going around. And she declined 3 times. And after that, the doctor was like, yeah, it doesn't work anyway, or it's bullshit anyway, or whatever.
So he asked her 3 times. It's like when you ask someone 3 times, it's like, it's done. It's like set in stone. That's so funny. What a total sync. I was just telling our friend Spoons that today about the whole 3 times thing.
Yeah.
So crazy. Yeah.
So even if they weren't, or even if this doctor wasn't aware of the 3rd time rule, naturally it was just like, okay, like boom, like
natural law,
like I just set this boundary, and then the doctor's like, yeah, it's bullshit anyway, or whatever. I was like, yeah. And they said they found another doctor after that.
Oh wow, who was that again? A friend of yours?
No, I think it was a bear. I think they might have super chatted in or something on the old Owen Benjamin stream. Yeah, something like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but it just popped into my head now.
How funny.
So that's what we're going to say right now about physical birth and stuff. But we want you guys in the comments to tell us your stories, share with us your experiences, comment below. And if you're in the chat, let us know what you think. But next we're going to get into more symbolism, I guess, of death and rebirth. And we're going to talk about cycles, because I really feel that they're all just cycles on top of cycles. They call it a life cycle. I mean, it's right in the word.
It should have been obvious.
Yeah. And if you look at as above, so below, as within, so without, I think we could get to, that's really what symbolism is about. It's about your own understanding of what these symbols mean and what you can use to apply them to. And you could use this cycle of life to apply to other cycles in our lives. And that's what we're going to talk about. And the first thing that we're going to do is Sharon is going to read another quote from the Bhagavad Gita, and we're going to talk about that.
Yes. And I'm going to finish reading the quote that I started at the beginning. And I'm going to probably read just several more verses, but it's really good. So here I go. When the senses contact sense objects, a person experiences cold or heat, pleasure or pain. These experiences are fleeting. They come and go. Bear them patiently, Arjuna. Those who are unaffected by these changes, who are the same in pleasure and pain, are truly wise and fit for immortality. Assert your strength and realize this. The impermanent has no reality. Reality lies in the eternal. Those who have seen the boundary between these two have attained the end of all knowledge. Realize that which pervades the universe and is indestructible. No power can affect this unchanging, imperishable reality. The body is mortal, but that which dwells in the body is immortal and immeasurable. Therefore, Arjuna, fight in this battle. One believes he is the slayer, another believes he is the slain. Both are ignorant. There is neither slayer nor slain. You were never born. You will never die. You have never changed. You can never change. Unborn, eternal, immutable, immemorial. You do not die when the body dies. Realizing that which is indestructible, eternal, unborn, and unchanging, how can you slay or cause another to slay? As one abandons worn-out clothes and acquires new ones, so when the body is worn out, a new one is acquired by the self who lives within. The self cannot be pierced by weapons or burned by fire. Water can't wet it, nor can the wind dry it. The self cannot be pierced or burned, made wet or dry. It is everlasting and infinite, standing on the motionless foundations of eternity. The self is unmanifested, beyond all thought, beyond all change. Knowing this, you should not grieve. O mighty Arjuna, even if you believe the self to be subject to birth and death, you should not grieve. Death is inevitable for the living. Birth is inevitable for the dead. Since these are unavoidable, you should not sorrow. Every creature is unmanifested at first and then attains manifestation. When its end has come, it once again becomes unmanifested. What is there to lament in this?
Beautiful. Good job, by the way.
So amazing. Thank you.
Yeah. And the first thing I want to say about the Bhagavad Gita is it's set in this war setting. Like I said, the Arjuna, he's the warrior and his brother is the rightful heir to the kingdom. So him and his small family, his close family and wives and children are there to fight the entire kingdom, and then Krishna comes in. He's at this point, he's like the avatar of the age. He's kind of like Christ incarnate in the Bible. And he's just walking around kind of helping people out. And he gives the two cousins a decision. And he says to him, one of them, you can have all of my armies. And the other one, you can have me, but just as a counselor, I can't fight. Like I'm God, I could just like wipe these people out or whatever, but I can't intervene that way. So Arjuna chooses to have Krishna as his counselor. And the other guy on the other side is very excited because now he has this giant army. And it's because he's really physical, right? He's only focused on the physical world and not on the spiritual world. So for him, the arms and all the giant elephants and all the battle gear and chariots and stuff, that's what he thinks he's going to win with. And the reason I bring this up is because it's set in a war. So we're not advocating that, you could just go around and kill people because they're going to like come back. So it doesn't matter. That's not what we're saying. I believe that a lot of these ancient texts were allegorical, and the reason that they use war is because people pay attention to the story, and it's very, it's something that everybody, I guess not in this modern society. We could relate to it, I guess, through movies and stuff. And some of us do have some experience in war, but not the kind of war they're talking about. So I think that it was set in the war so people would sit up and pay attention. So I don't think it's directly about slaying everybody, but the fact that he says, because what happens right before this, Arjuna is riding on his chariot with Krishna in between all the two armies, and he falters and he's like, how can I kill all these people? How can I kill my teacher? How can I kill my, my spiritual teacher, the guy who taught me how to shoot a bow? Like all these people, how can I kill them? And Arjuna is basically saying to them, like, they're already slain. And the way I interpret that is because of their decision, because they decide to represent the material, which is, and it's the wrong side, because in the way it's set, they just set it in a lineage way of who should be king. So everybody who's helping the other guy support his claim, they're helping him usurp the throne, really. And so they're living against what God should be decreed, because like kings are always ordained by God. Yeah, exactly. So Krishna's saying they already chose to die, but I just wanted to bring that up because obviously people, right, I'm sure aren't going to think we're like advocating go out and chop people's heads off.
Absolutely. And I would add to that the Bhagavad Gita itself says that this is allegory. It's talking about the war, spiritual war within. So like there is a war within when you're having, quote, negative thoughts versus the positive thoughts. What's going to win? Right. And we talked about this before, but the Native American thing of like, which dog wins, right? We talked about it with Ashley.
Yeah, there's two wolves inside.
Yeah, a black and a white one. Which one wins is the one you feed.
How dare you?
I know.
Black and white. Yeah. That's exactly right though. And I forgot what else I was going to say. Anyway, what were we going to say? Oh, so we were going to talk about so they might not. So if you say, okay, Brandon, this is all allegorical, then they're not talking about physical death. They're, and there again, it's another way to use the as above, so below, where you're looking at what can happen spiritually to you and what also can happen physically to you. So.
Right. And in these concepts that we have here is a fear. There's fear involved in this encounter that's going on with Arjuna. Now, is it fear of death? Is it fear of losing because he can't, or is it fear of like killing people? What do you think, Brandon?
I would say most of it is fear of, because from studying it for so long, I think it's for him, he just doesn't want to do his duty at the end of the day, right? So it's a fear,
like a procrastination type of thing.
Yeah, that's part of it too. And it's like a fear of trusting the plan at the end of the day. It's a fear of doing the right thing because it's just the right thing to do. Sometimes it's easier to do the easy thing.
What everyone else is doing.
It's easier to jump on that other
their
side.
Smiling faces, shall we say?
Yeah, right. Exactly. It's a lot easier to just do that and go along with the crowd. And Krishna is saying to Arjuna, because he's like, you're a warrior. If you don't fight these people, then your name's going to be dishonored forever. And for a warrior, dishonor is the worst thing, So he's like, just do your job. That's all you have to do. It's really simple. Don't be afraid. Just do your job. He's like, I'm telling you, I'm God, and fortunately he listens, but yeah. And I think that's really what is at the crux of a lot of this stuff that we talk about is fear. And we talked about it last episode too. And I think that really is the biggest sin, I guess you could say, is to have fear and despair. Like if I had fear and despair when I was, swimming in Ocean City, I might not be here right now, and you guys might not get to see my lovely hair and hear my lovely voice and have this lovely Over Sharon show, and it was all because of a decision I made.
You saved yourself.
I did. And, I did it because I wanted to live and I wanted to keep going.
Absolutely. And that, like, this kind of leads into the next topic that we wanted to talk about, which is like, what was our path to, how did we get to where we are from religion, from a religious perspective?
Mm-hmm. And we've talked more in depth about all this stuff, so go back and listen if you want. We're just going to kind of give an overview of hopping where we went to where we went, and then we're going to talk about how it pertains to the cycles of life and death. So I guess I'll go first. My experience is probably the one that I hear the most, and I grew up in going to Catholic school and Catholic mass and stuff like that. And it was just kind of like a thing you did, it's like, all right, everybody has to go to church. They got to do this. Nobody was like super religious in my family until my mom went to this born again Christian church for a while. And then things got a little crazy. I couldn't listen to the Beastie Boys, the Beastie Boys. Look, it's in the name. I mean, at the end of the day, they were probably doing me a favor. It was for the wrong reasons though. And that's the thing, right? Since it didn't make sense to me, I just was like, whatever, later on. And then several years later, fast forward, I'm still in this mindset. I'm not really sure, but I still believe there's God, and I'm probably could go to hell if I don't do the right things. And then I come across all this information about astrotheology and about the sun and a lot of stuff that Crow talks about in one of his recent episodes. What was it, 394? I think it was.
I think so. Yeah. We'll talk about it in a little bit.
Yeah. And it was a lot of that stuff. So I realized similarities between Christianity and like Zoroastrianism, like all these ancient religions. And I thought it was all just like a trick, like a system of control. So I threw out the baby with the bathwater and I became, I guess, agnostic. I wasn't really atheist. And I talk about this before because I was never like proud of it and just being like, I'm an atheist and like had to tell people and convert them. It's just in my mind. I was like, I got to see some more proof. So I hung out there for a while and then I got into meditation and spirituality and kind of the new agey stuff. And once I navigated through that, I came into, I guess, what you could call true spirituality and, what natural law and the golden rule and karma is really all about and stuff like that. And now I kind of created my own religion in a way where I have my own belief system that's very unique, and similar in some ways to a lot of people, but it's also unique, very unique, I'm sure, in other ways. And that was my journey, and that's where I'm at now.
Yeah. And you were also saying to me earlier that you happened upon this lifestyle, or sorry, this journey at a particular time. And you were saying how like all of that also lined up with your addictions that you had. And so you were able to come and arrive to all these conclusions, possibly because of those addictions.
Yeah, when I talk about on other episodes also with my severe intimacy issues, some people call it sex addiction. And I was looking at like polyamory. I don't know if you've ever heard of that.
I mean, I've heard of polygamy and polygyny, which
well,
is
polyamory is
different.
this new term. It's kind of new agey also. And it's funny because I was listening to a podcast earlier about people in San Francisco, and they were saying like in San Francisco, it's huge and it's heterosexual, but what basically what happens is you just have multiple partners. Like there's no commitments, and
It
some
sounds
people
like that. Yeah.
yeah. So everyone's just going around banging. And I was like, this sounds like it makes a lot of sense.
The
And I
Big
think,
Bang.
yeah, exactly. A lot of big bangs. But from what I found out, it's mostly gross people. But I guess it's like catching on with millennials. I don't freaking know. But anyway, so when I started to meditate and I started to kind of just get sick of sleeping around and doing some, I was doing some plant medicines at the time also. I started to realize that my behavior was just silly, and it really did line up with my beliefs, because after that, I kind of got into natural law and all this stuff. And I saw how my actions were affecting people, even though I wasn't being dishonest. Like I would just tell people straight up if I met them, like, I'm not really into commitment at this time. Like but still, and I thought that was
Great.
enough. What's that?
You thought that was great. That works.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, I thought though, it also, it got rid of my responsibility, I guess I could say. So now, well, I'm not responsible if this person gets feelings or whatever, but I saw what it actually can do to people, because other people can be in their addictions too. And I could just be in their addiction with them, and if it's a woman, it could come out of trauma. I mean, I'm sure mine did too, but I could just be helping her relive cycles. So, right as I started to realize that there is something to this whole realm, there is it was created, something like that, there is some kind of creator. That is when that whole thing started to fall apart for me. And I started to realize that I didn't want to live that lifestyle. So it went hand in hand with it. It's really crazy.
That's amazing. Well, we talk about this in depth in our religious episodes. I can't remember which ones those are now at the moment, but
I think it was 11 and then 11. Go check those out. Yeah, because like
okay.
contemplating cosmology.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I was just looking at them earlier. So
okay. So my story is a little different, and if you've heard those, you know a little bit more. But I kind of went from this learned religion, like being born and raised in this, particular cult that I think is a cult, but whatever. I think everything's a cult. And then I had some moments of like, this is bullshit, like
This is
fuck that,
bullshit.
fuck that shit, and and came to like realize that all religions are systems of control. So to me, it was like, well, I'm wiping the slate clean and I'm just going to be open to new ideas, new thoughts, and I'm going to see what resonates with me. And I'm open now. I'm open to true spirituality, wherever that leads me, whatever that is. So that's what I am. That's why I don't have labels on myself. I don't even like the word religion. I never have. That's the funny part, is I was even growing up and I would go to church and stuff, and people would ask me, what religion are you, in high school or whatever? And I'd be like, I don't like that word. I'm just, at the time, right? I'd just be like, I'm just a Christian, but I'm just like, I believe in Jesus or whatever, right? At the time, that's what I would tell them. But it's like, people were always like, they wanted to like put you in a box and label you. And I always hated that word religion. And I guess now I know why.
Yeah, I feel people, it happens to me a lot. Oh, you're tall. Do you play basketball? Oh, like I've never fit in these boxes. Like I was a United States Marine, everybody. Like,
Yeah.
people were just like, what? But so I feel that when you meet people, they're like, oh, you do like Trump, and it's really
right.
what's going on, if I could say, is a lot of times is people are just insecure in their own, because I've done it too, right? So a sports team will take, oh, do you like the Giants or you like the Jets, or oh, you like the Cowboys? I
always hated sports, but go ahead.
And that's what it's about. It's because people are trying to get some kind of validation, because they want to, at the end of the day, they need validation for their choices. So if you validate them, then you make them feel good, then they get that good feeling. But what they don't realize is that good feeling is, you could give it to yourself. It's called crack. No, it's inside. It's just the self-love. They're looking for love in all the wrong places.
I don't know that song.
If could it be that it comes from within? I think that's more of a thing, and something that just blew my mind when you were talking about your religious experience. Because I always, when I was first into God, we'll say into Jesus, it was out of fear, because I was afraid of going to hell, right? And then I realized it was a system of control, so I lost the fear. Just like I got dragged out into the ocean, and then when I lost the fear, I swam back in and I found my own path. And that's what I did. So now it's not out of a place of fear, it's out of a place of understanding natural law and how it works, and how it's just a system for humans to coexist together. Karma, God's law, the golden rule. It's just a system for people to live in harmony as humans are meant to live, I think. And it's okay that we're not living that way, though. I think, though, we have to learn our lessons, and the only way to learn them is to know them. And that's what this realm, I think, is about. At least at this point, we're getting to know what it's like to take advantage of somebody and screw somebody over and lie. All these things, even murder, you get to feel that and know what it's like. And then it affects you, it affects your children, it affects everybody around you. And I think it's important for us to know what that's like. I'm not telling you to go kill somebody again. I keep having to tell people that. It's just funny. But yeah, that's why I try not to judge people when it comes to that. But yeah, I just wanted to add that, because it kind of blew my mind there. It's like, oh, I was just into God out of fear because I didn't want to burn for eternity.
Yeah. And I mean, I mentioned this in our religious episodes as well, but I don't feel like I had that kind of fear that much. But if I remember, now that I look back, I think of one of the moments where I was looking into this man who's an alleged prophet in the cult in which I grew up. And I grew up hearing all the time, like, he prophesied this and this is going to happen and all these things, right?
What did he have to say about 9/11?
Well, okay, he died in 1965. He didn't even experience that. Isn't that weird? Or
Even
one,
Nostradamus,
yeah. Anyway, it was, yeah, weird stuff. But there was moments when I would find like somehow I went looking for information about him, and I came across, because I was already kind of searching for like answers after I left the religion or whatever, or just as I was like trying to leave it, maybe hadn't quite left it yet completely. I was looking for information about it, maybe more to prove to myself that it was right, because a lot of people did it that way. And that's when they found out that there were lots of lies. There was lots of like taking advantage of the situation. Like, just like if something happened, he would be like, oh, that was an angel that came to me. And, somebody would be like, I saw a cloud in the sky. Wasn't that him? Was that him being lifted up into the heavens? It's just a lot of like ridiculous stuff, right? So he would like take advantage of those things and then like make them part of his story. I wasn't even planning on talking about this, but
I love it.
So I was looking into stuff like this, but I wasn't so much digging for dirt. I just it was almost like I wanted to confirm that what I was looking into was valid, maybe. But I was coming across these things that were like clashing, like, no, this guy's not telling the truth about stuff. And then I kind of had to like close it and like be like, wait, what? And it would like kind of freak me out. And like literally, I think years passed. And then I would come back at some point, look at it again, and I would still be like, dude. But there was somewhat of a fear of like, what if he's right type of thing? Then what if he's right, then I'm going to go to hell or something like that. Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe not so much I'm going to go to hell, but what if he's right? Then what does that mean for me? Kind of. So I had to go through that kind of experience of seeing those things. It was almost like cognitive dissonance to see that there was evidence of him saying one thing, and then there was evidence of it not being true. Like, I believe he claimed he was born on certain days, but on a certain day, because there's lots of tapes, because back in the day, this is 1960, 40s, 50s, and 60s was when he was preaching. I think even 30s. So there were lots of tapes, and I heard tapes growing up all the time. But the thing is, no one had access to all of them necessarily. So when things got digitized, it was like people went searching for like quotes, and they could type in the search, and they could see the text, and they could like highlight quotes and then copy paste them, stuff like that. Right. Well, some people started going, wait, I saw a quote that said this, and then I saw a quote that said this. And then it was like, oh, when he was preaching in this church, he was for the Trinity. And when he was preaching at that church, he was not for the Trinity. And it was like, wait, what? Like, because the church where I grew up, he was not for the Trinity. And so it was just a lot of like, it was almost like he would like just be who he had to be at that church, just to make people, just to appease to the people. So if he were at a church where it was like okay to be a Trinitarian, then he would be. But if it was at his home-based church or whatever, then he wouldn't be. Like, and he preached in a lot of places. So in the nation and in other countries too, allegedly. So once these things started coming out, then, and it was probably like, I want to say it was like right before this whole thing hit, probably a good year before all this thing hit, or a year or two before all this stuff hit. You know what I'm talking about?
2020.
Yeah. And that's when I was like, I finally was like, bullshit, dude. It's all bullshit. Holy smokes. And then I got mad. And I had like, I still in my section here where I have books, I still had like some of his sermons that were printed sermons and little booklets of sermons. I was so pissed. I was like, I pulled them off the shelf. In fact, Off the Shelf, Off the Shelf, I think is the name of the podcast that I listened to that was like, okay, dude, I'm done. Because somebody who had used to be a preacher for this whole thing, they call themselves message believers. Yeah.
Are you trying to deny the message?
Yes. I didn't even mean to go into all of this, but anyway,
that's all right.
All that stuff made me go, oh, hell no. And I came in here, I grabbed those books. I'm like, no. I went to the trash can. I started tearing them up and I was like, I don't want anybody to find these. I don't want anybody to be misled by this crap. I'm going to throw these in the trash. I'm not even going to recycle them. Like nobody needs to see this. I'm like tearing all the pages in like pieces. And like my fingers, by the time I was done with them, my fingers were so sore because like these books, some of the books were like this thick. And I was just like tearing stuff up.
You were like Christ in the temple, flipping the tables.
Yes.
Because the temple that represents, because the temple, it's like the holy place. And this guy's in there trying to take advantage of people. And you're like, nope, ripping them up. That's great.
Yeah. I was like, no. So that was my moment of like, okay, this is bullshit. Okay. So that was that. And then like in 2020 is when I had enough of like all churchianity. And I was like, I'm done. I don't want to say never say never. Like I never want to say never because of the whole never say never, but I said I'd never wanted to step foot in another church ever again. And I know I've said, if Bill Donahue was preaching, maybe I would. That's about it.
One thing I wanted to say to you is that maybe you should go back and listen to some of his tapes because I bet there's some nuggets in there, some really good stuff. And it could even be like allegorical or whatever, but there is some truth because everybody that was persuaded by him, there's something in there.
No, and absolutely. There are definitely things that are true and were true. And I would think I was telling you earlier about, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, and with the ears that you have now, you might be able to hear it in a different way. It's going to, just like when you read the Bible now and it kind of blows your mind. You're like, oh, maybe that's what they meant.
Yeah, I'm sure I would. But I'm not ready to do that.
No, that's fine. I'm just saying one day, because I'm sure this guy was into some occult stuff, even if he didn't know it. He's using his words to control people like that.
Now that I think about it, he was a healer.
Yeah.
Right. He would pray for people, as people would be walking by and he would pray for, but here's the thing. If he had an intention to heal that person, let's say, and that person felt that they were going to be healed by them, hey, maybe they did get healed. You know what I mean? But
yeah, definitely, because through their belief they were healed. That's why they call them belief healers, because the people believed it also. And the thing, something I wanted to add, because you said the 30s. In the 30s, it was pretty big because of the Great Depression. There's these churches that would go around kind of like a circus, right? And they would just set up
healers.
Faith healer would come.
So
this guy might have been coming out of that.
He was definitely part of and coming through that. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's where it just transformed, and it just became, they didn't have to do tents anymore or whatever. They just did.
Well, he was doing tents and all kinds of stuff, I'm sure.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Auditoriums, whatever. He was just allegedly like thousands of people would show up. I mean,
I have exorcised the demon. I think that's Ace Ventura. Thank you. That's for the chat.
Thank you for that. But he did, as I was telling you off video earlier, that there were some things that he did say that I grew up with that influenced me now. Like he would say that the original Bible was written in the stars or in the zodiac or something like that, right?
Yep.
So there's truth like in some of the stuff that he was saying, but like again, I feel like he was I forgot what the word is, but an opportunist. And if something kind of sounded right or resonated, he would just like use that, right? And I mean, maybe, I don't know, maybe he was innocent and he just thought he was doing the right thing. I don't know. But yeah, I had my moment of like, that's bullshit for sure.
Yeah, well, you needed that, so
Yeah.
it's good. He did
Yeah.
you a service.
Yeah.
There might not be an Over Sharon show without that guy.
Could it be?
So what are
But
we
yeah,
talking about? Oh, go ahead. Were you
just I think we're going to transition to, I mean, we're talking about religious topics, but like the ways of control. And you wanted to talk about Jesus.
Oh, Jesus. Well, we talk about scientism and atheism kind of?
You can talk about that.
Yeah, because that was also part of my belief system when I was agnostic. It just lines up really good with this whole scientism stuff. Like you look at all these movies in pop culture, like Outbreak. Like I love that movie. It was so cool. It's such a cool concept, but it can only really work in a world where there isn't a God. Like it doesn't make sense. Like germs and germ theory just doesn't make sense in a world, in a realm.
We'd all be dead.
Yeah, it would I don't think we'd have the overpopulation that they say we do. Like I don't think we could get people to live in cities on top of each other so closely. I mean, I've been to New York City several times, and if this stuff was real, it would be like the movies, right?
Yeah. Everyone would be dead.
Yeah, so I think that's another trick that they do, and because a lot of people are on this agnostic or atheist kick, they kind of just go along with it because it's a great story. When you don't believe in anything, you're like, sure, fine, we're all going to die anyway, because it's another angle of despair. Yeah, so that's right, I forgot to talk about that, but we did want to talk about Jesus, so obviously, because we're talking about rebirth and resurrection and all these concepts. And what's the one that we're all familiar with? It's Jesus, right? And Easter's coming up, so this is perfect.
You're right.
Yeah, gonna get some hard-boiled eggs and chocolate bunnies. That's what Jesus would do.
Because that's what Easter's all about.
What would Jesus do? Yeah, so Jesus dies, right? 3 days later, he's resurrected. 3 days, right?
The sun, shall we say?
Yeah, the sun, and it's 3 days, which is
winter solstice.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, that's where it lines up, and that's one of the things that kind of got me to go along with the agnostic thing, because I realized that was just based on the sun. So I thought it was all based just on sun worship at the time. But if you think
of which, Crow episode 394.
Yeah,
we're going to talk about it a little bit, but yeah, that is really good about sun worship and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, I interrupted you.
What's that?
Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, it's fine. We're oversharing. So Jesus rises again on the third day, and then he, the rock is moved away from the tomb. It's like blown away, and everyone's like, wow, what the hell happened? And he comes back, and he's in a body. He's in his same physical body again, but there's just something different about him, right? He's not of this world. He's like not mortal anymore. He conquered death, and he's back, and he was resurrected. He's reborn. And something that Sharon was talking about was doubting Thomas, which I really like, because a lot of people, so the disciples are in this place that's like locked up or whatever. They're in this room, and Jesus just appears to them. He comes in there, and there's like no way for him to get in there. And so everyone's like, how the hell did he get in? Right. It's like, so that kind of gives you this supernatural feel to him. And then also,
like, he has a physical body, but at the same time, he can walk through walls. So that reminds me of things like Saint Germain, of, people who have been able to, like, you see their flesh and then they can just dematerialize as they wish.
Yeah, like think of Yoda or Obi-Wan Kenobi when he gets hit with the lightsaber and he just disappears. I think that's kind of a nod to that. It's that same thing. And the doubting Thomas is really cool because one of the apostles, Thomas, I'm sure everyone's familiar with the story, he doubts it. He's like, nah, man, nah, I don't think so. I want to see.
I want to feel and see for myself.
Exactly, which I think is great. And I think that's why the book of Thomas was like hidden, probably. It's a little doubting Thomas is like a little nod to it. But so he's like, no, let me see it. So he touches all the wounds and he feels it and he like gives a stamp of approval. He's like, yeah, this guy is really the guy who says he is, because they don't got CGI like they do now. So yeah, nobody was faking that kind of stuff back then.
Yeah.
I know you wanted to talk about that a little bit too.
Interesting
Jesus
story.
And the apostles.
Yeah. But then you wanted to talk about how he actually ascended and he went to the Mound of Transfiguration. Wow. I haven't thought about this stuff since I was going to church a couple years ago.
Right. It's all mind blowing, right? When you come back.
Yeah.
And so he ascends in his body right up to heaven. So it's that same kind of thing where he just kind of dematerializes, but he just ascends. So I think the ascension is just showing people, just like the way. So it could have happened. It could have been a thing that really happened. I don't know. I was not there.
Or
but
it could be allegory for ascending.
And it could, exactly. And it could even be both. I don't want to ostracize anybody.
Right.
So, and the symbolism here, just like the Bhagavad Gita uses war, well, he comes back after his death. He hangs out. How long did he hang out with everybody? Do you know, before he ascended? I know it's like
40 days, I think 30 or 40 days or something.
Yeah, like probably 40 days or something. And then he ascends to heaven. So I think it's just a way to symbolize arising in your consciousness, just like you were saying, right? So he's arising now to be with the Father. So now he is realizing that I am he, like, which he gets.
We've been reading and listening to Neville Goddard too. And
yeah. I am.
We'll eventually probably talk about that, but that stuff is really,
I'm already imagining it now. Right. So that's so funny if you know who Neville Goddard is. Yeah. So I think, and then he sits at the right hand of the Father. So he's signifying that after this death. And if we're going to take it allegorically, and we're going to talk about that now, it's if you're going to have this spiritual death within, if you're going to hit this rock bottom where your way of living in the world is done, you spiritually die and you have a dark night of the soul. You go through the underworld, like we talked about last week, and you start to change your behaviors. And when you come out of that, you're like a caterpillar who comes out of the cocoon, and you're a butterfly, and you're going to fly now, right? You're flying up. That's why it's such a great analogy. Just like Jesus ascended, now you're able to fly. So you're no longer concerned with all the things that caterpillars care about. It doesn't matter about getting to the top of the caterpillar pile anymore, because you could just fly right up there. You're just seeing things from another way. And I think that's beautifully symbolized in that way, in that story.
Right. And then you have that actual concept in Christianity, and they call it born again Christianity. And it's almost like they're almost there. They're talking about a spiritual thing, because again, just like Nicodemus was like, am I going to crawl back into my mother's womb and be reborn into this world, in this realm? And he's like, no, you just don't get it. So it was a spiritual thing. Born again Christianity is talking about that.
Yeah. And it's like we say with all religions, there has to be truth in it for people to accept it. So I think when it's put to people that way, since we're so materialistic, that's just the material view, and people buy it because it's true and they know it's true inside. But it's kind of like if you're it's like food, right? Like, is McDonald's really food? Like, I don't know, people eat it and they think it is, so
I wouldn't touch it.
Yeah, it's that same thing where when you see things from a different point of view, you can realize what maybe they were talking about. And I know I want to talk about baptism, because in the born again Christianity, that's what I was involved in around 4th, 5th grade, 6th grade, I think, up to at least. I was rebaptized again, and they put you in this big tank and they actually dunk you underwater. Mm-hmm. And I know that in the old days, they used to bring you to the river. And I've done some looking into this, and what it could have been was a way to simulate death, to give people near death experience. If you hold them underwater, like I said, you get that adrenaline dump, that fight or flight. And then if you think you're going to die, you might have your life flash in front of your face, which has actually happened to me before.
Okay.
I started to have my life flash in front of my face one time when I was riding my motorcycle, flying down the street, and this guy in the truck is coming the other way, and he goes to take a left in front of me.
You talked about it on, I think, episode 1.
Yeah. And
because that's why I talked about my not being able to breathe.
Yeah.
Because you asked me if I've ever had that kind of experience. And I said no, because I really haven't had a near death experience like that, in the sense of my life flashes before me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh yeah. I remember that was a great episode. Everybody go check it out after this. What else are you doing? You have nothing to do. Just go watch it. What are you going to watch? Netflix? Come on.
Catch up on all your oversharing.
That's right. It's a great day to catch up on oversharing. Yeah. So,
and could it be that you might get a DMT overload?
Yeah. When you're under the water,
you get to the point where you think you're going to die.
Yeah. Because people say that they believe that upon death, there's all these chemicals released, and that's what causes the flashback. And because a lot of people that have near-death experiences where they actually died and then they come back, they'll say that there was no pain involved and all this stuff.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, if they're simulating that, then they're going to cause you to have a rebirth, because you're going to, just like somebody who battles cancer or whatever, or has a near-death experience, they change. A lot of people that go through that, they have a whole new perspective on life. And then they're like, I want to write a book. I want to become a stand-up comedian. Like when I was doing stand-up, a few people, this one woman actually had cancer, and she performed because it was like something she wanted to do before she passed away. So it's that thing, it's that motivational kick in the ass, right? So that's what they're doing to you. Now, they didn't do that to me. They just dunk you under the water for like a minute or whatever. But I'm sure at some point, it was a little different, where they were holding people underwater and having them go through this experience. And, I can't even say it's a bad thing if that's what they're doing, because if you have someone who's living an easy life and they are just complacent and they're just going along and they're a cog in a system, you're kind of waking them up, especially if they're consenting to it, if they know what it is, if they're seeing other people go through it. So it could have been something that was a good tool. Maybe that's why they really don't drown you anymore at the Born Again Christian thing, because they don't want you
to really have the rebirth experience. So now they fake it, they simulate it.
They symbolize. It's like a symbolistic. They fake it.
That's hilarious. Did you tell a story recently about a boy that was part of a group of people and then there was maybe a monk or something? I feel like there was a story that I recently heard, and I don't remember where I heard it. And then when the boy complained, I don't even remember the story because I'm terrible at details, but the boy complains to the man, whether he's a monk or whatever. And then later on, the next day, he takes all the boys to the river, and then he tells the boy that complained to him, he tells him, okay, come here. And then he takes him to the water and he dunks him under. And then the kid's thinking, okay, yeah, whatever, I'll come up in a second or whatever. So he tries to come up, and the teacher pushes him down. And then, he's going, well, what's going on here? Is he trying to drown me? What the heck is going on? And then he's like, you know what? I'm going to push up with all my strength. So he pushes all the way up, and he's like, what were you trying to do to me? Like, were you trying to kill me? What's going on here? And he's like, he said something to the effect of like, now you know that you really wanted to live, or to really try, like you really had to try. And now you know that you really wanted to live, or something to that effect. And I'm terrible with these like sayings and stuff, but
yeah, I heard that recently. It might have been in a video. Where did
you hear it? Maybe
it might have been in a video that we both listened to. Yeah. Like the guy was in despair, and he's like, well, I guess you do want to live,
Right. That
Yeah.
was very interesting. So it's kind of a sync. So
again, we don't recommend this on the Oversharing Show, everybody. But hey, if you do it, let us know how it goes.
Yeah. So, but yeah, so the next topic we wanted to kind of lead into was just to get into like symbolism and things like that, we wanted to talk about the tarot, numerology, because they have these concepts and archetypes of these ends of cycles. And Brandon can speak more to that.
Yeah, well, we'll start because last week we talked about death. And that's number 13. We talked about the symbolism of it and what it could mean. And if you think about what's next, all you have to do is go to the tarot and look at the next card. And that's the Temperance card. And it's a card of balance and abundance. And it's really like a safe, nice looking card. I actually have one here from the Druid Craft Tarot. And it's called the Pharaoh. I'm probably saying that wrong. But you could see it's about, it's a woman right here. She has this cauldron going. She's weighing out everything just right. I think there's some nice birds or whatever. And then you see the rainbow. Can't really see it, but yeah, there you go. And out the window, there's a pyramid with a rainbow coming out of it. And there's smoke that's wisping out of this cauldron and it's going right outside. So it's kind of like a balance with nature and everything. And what I like about that is two things. It's kind of letting you know that death is just a normal cycle, like we're saying. And afterwards, everything's going to be all right, man. You just got to walk through that door. You're going
to get rebalanced, right?
Yeah.
Can I show the Temperance card in the Rider-Waite?
Yeah, please do.
Yeah. So it looks like that.
Yep. And the thing I like about this card is in the background, there's some mountains and there's a sun and there's a path that leads back to those mountains. So those mountains could be the place where you had to crawl through, right? You're crawling through and you're like almost dead. Think of like, Frodo and Lord of the Rings and stuff going over these mountains. And you get to this lovely pool with nature and everything's great. And there's this angel there, with the water, and it's all about balance. So I feel like
1 foot in the water, 1 foot on the land.
Exactly. It's another great symbol for balance. So it's like you have one foot in one world, 1 foot in the other. So it also signifies kind of like a in-between stage also. And really everything that we talked about as far as symbolism with death and rebirth, to me anyway. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to bring the tarot into this. And it's the same thing with numerology, because at the end of the day, all the symbolism that is encoded in tarot is really just comes from the number. You could just really get it off the number, honestly. And it just embodies everything that number symbolizes.
And it's funny because before we start, you were going to pull a card. You found the Hierophant, but in your deck, it's called the High Priest, right? And if 1 + 4 is 5, and 5 is the Hierophant. So this card is also connected to the Hierophant.
Yeah, exactly. And the Hierophant to me always, like esoterically, if we're looking at this, it's going to represent gaining control of yourself, self-knowledge, and getting it. There's like a lot of people advocate for all these different systems of government, and everyone's like, we should have freedom, but I think internally you should have monarchy. You should have like a king inside that is strict. So then you could deserve outward freedom and physical freedom in this realm, because then you're going to be responsible with it. Excuse me. That's a concept I learned from Mark Passio, actually. He would
I
always
never heard that.
Yeah, he'd say internal monarchy and external anarchy. Because you can't, you could, but if you just declared anarchy tomorrow, it would be madness, because most people aren't ready for it.
Because I am he.
Exactly.
Or she, I should say.
Yeah, you are she. She-Ra.
I never saw that, by the way.
She-Ra.
Ra, the sun god.
Yeah.
Holy
there you go.
Smokes.
Yeah, so
Wow.
there's all kinds of symbolism, obviously, and cycles, though, that are in the tarot. If you're just looking at the major arcana itself, those are the 22 trump cards, as we'll say.
They are.
0 through 21, you get the full, and it goes all the way up to the world, which is 21. And there's many cycles in there. It's one big cycle itself, but there's many that are in there, and you could take and look at it, and you can apply it to your life and or a project. And
in the minor arcana too, like when you're going from the ace is the beginning of the cycle, and then technically the 9 is the end of a cycle. I think I heard Crow say that, and I was like, you know what, that makes way more sense than 10 being the end of the cycle, because 9 really is, because when you get to 10, you're back at 1.
Yeah, and it's 1 with the 0, which I like because it gives you the full aspect of it. And it's just like the whole concept of when you could go back home again, and it could be a different place just because of your perspective on the world. You see things in a different place, and people might see you as a fool, but you have that magician power along with it. So you're actually out there creating,
exactly.
But you can use this facade of the fool for people who don't understand what's going on. They can just be like, oh, he's crazy.
Yeah. So 9 was the end of that cycle, and the 10, the combination of the fool and the magician, brings you back to the beginning of a new cycle.
Exactly. Love it.
Really, really cool.
Nailing it. All right.
Yeah.
Another thing we want to talk about with symbolism is the phoenix. Not only does Sharon live in Phoenix, but the phoenix is the perfect example of this, because it descends into flames and it gets burned. And it looks like it's going to be dead, the former bird, whatever, but out of the ashes, that phoenix comes. So everything that was on the exterior before had to burn off for that phoenix to be a phoenix and fly high, just like a caterpillar. It had to shed its old body. It had to get rid of that, just like a snake sheds its skin. And that's just like a smaller cycle, right? So you have to, in order to fly, you have to burn off that old crap. So if we're looking at this spiritually, it's just about your old way of being and the old way you did things in the world, and the old way that you saw things. That just all burns away. It's just a natural process. And then you're able to fly to the next level of perception of what this realm could be, and what your possibilities in life can be, and what you can achieve. You're no longer weighed down by these negative thoughts that you're having. You that just all burned away, and now you're at a different plane.
It's funny because I didn't think of saying this like when we were talking about baptism and all that, but I was thinking about how because where I went to church most recently within the last several years, the way they did baptism was that you wrote down your I suppose kind of like your story, and then you would read that in front to everybody, and then you would get baptized. It was kind of like your testimony. And it was like this is the who that I was, and this is the who I am now, after having gone through whatever I went through, and now I am different. I'm a different being. And what was interesting that I actually liked from this church, because I didn't experience this necessarily when I was growing up in the church I went to, was that they would say that getting baptized was the evidence of something that already had happened inside of you, like a change had already happened within you. And then the baptism was just a broadcast of like, okay, I'm just letting everybody know now that I'm different. So here you are, everybody, So when I got baptized, I had to write that. And that was a very hard thing to write because I'm very verbose. So I had to kind of whittle it down, but it literally took over Sharon. I had to whittle it down. I read it to Andreas, and I was like, okay. And then I was like, man, that's a bit long. I probably should whittle some of that down. And I think it still took 15 minutes to read.
Good.
And then I got baptized. But yeah,
if I was up there, I would have took an hour and been up there doing material and stuff. Hey, that's what a comedian would do.
well, I wasn't the only one. It's funny part is like there were like 3 or 4 other people. So I was like, but somehow you drew like not lots, but like you drew like when you were going to go so that you didn't have to be like, somebody got to go first. I wanted to go first or whatever. It's just like, and I ended up being last. And funny part was
you got to close the show.
I got to close it, dude. It was
perfect closer.
Hilarious. And then when I was done and everything, I got people coming up to me going, that was one of the best testimonies I've ever heard. And like,
oh yeah,
this one man was like, he's like, you were like preaching up there.
Yeah, that's like that's proof.
He's like, that was like a sermon.
Exactly. That's proof there is a God, because they didn't want anyone to suffer and have to follow that. Imagine having to follow. They're like, oh man, like I got to rewrite this.
Seriously, I think people were like that, because I went to one, so there were baptism classes, and one of them we had to read what like kind of a draft was. And I don't think I got to read mine because I didn't end up going to that particular class. I missed it for some reason.
Good.
So nobody really knew except the pastor, because I had sent it to him an email, and one of the pastors. And so no one but him knew like what I was about to read, unless he shared it with other people that I didn't know about. Yeah. But like, like nobody else really knew what I was going to read.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm sure he shared it with a few people. He's like, get some popcorn.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Good for you.
Yeah. Fun stuff. It was fun. I had fun doing all that, as much as it was kind of weird, but
now you know.
Yeah.
The other thing we're going to talk about is what a spiritual death entails. And I kind of touched on it a bunch in this episode, but it could be, it's like, it's essentially establishing a balance. When you're going way too far from one direction, for example, like with an addiction, and you're going into a hardcore and it starts to take up most of your life, something's going to happen. Something's going to give. It's like a car that you're just redlining down the highway. You're just, and the engine's going to blow up eventually. Something's going to happen. It's going to bring you back into balance. And that's really what we mean by spiritual death. It brings back the harmony.
Yeah. There's a lot of just like terminology that we could use to talk about these things. It's like, waking up could be another way to describe this, like rebirth or whatever. Coming out of a dark night of the soul, shadow work, rock bottom moments, like coming out of a rock bottom moment, that sort of thing. But yeah,
like an epiphany can even cause something like this to happen, because it could, like we said, there's big cycles. Sometimes you have this crazy cycle and you'll be like, I shouldn't be banging all these women. Oh, and by the way, when this airs, I think it'll be 3 years now that I've had sexual relations with that lady, or with any ladies. Yeah. So wow, there you go. 3
days in the tomb. I'm just
kidding. And we talked about 3s earlier, and this is our 3rd time talking about 3s. So
yes. And when someone says something 3 times, like Crow's Law episodes talk about that a lot. In the courtroom, when you say something 3 times, it's like,
maybe that means I'm going to have some sex.
Oh my God.
I'm reborn. That's a great pickup line. Hey lady, I'm reborn. You come here often? I haven't.
Oh, Jesus.
Jesus. And we wanted to talk about the old temperance card again, and why we think it comes after death. Right. So what do you think it comes after death?
Right. Like you were saying, death is, it's establishing a balance after something like that happens. So the death is like, we were saying, like, whether we were doing shadow work or whether, we had a dark night of the soul, whatever, addictions that we had that were like, we can't be doing that anymore. That's not something I want to be doing anymore. And then you come out of this and you're just rebalancing. You're just establishing a balance to whatever your addictions or irritabilities were before. So, but I think you were going to say something about how it comes before the next card, which is the devil card. What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, that's a great point. And it's so deep. But I think the latest thoughts that I've had on this are that because the devil card is kind of about slavery, like an internal slavery. So I think it kind of represents, that meme that was passed around and it said, like, I got rid of my ego, and then the guy falls and smacks into the spiritual ego thing. I think that's what that signifies, because it's like you find out this new stuff, right? And then you're like, oh, I know what's going on. So you kind of become a slave to it in a way. Not that it's even bad, because sometimes
kind of like a slave to gravy, like always looking for new gravy.
Exactly.
Right? Like
right?
Big Bear
Going down
says.
rabbit holes, right? So this could be perfect. Say you get your mind blown and the world isn't what you thought it was. And oh my God, the president, he could be a puppet, or who knows, right? All these things. And then you start to go down these rabbit holes. And I think that is what the devil card signifies, right? And you're only doing it to yourself, because you can see in the devil card, the chain is lightly upon the little man. Why don't you bring that up while I talk? Do you have
We've
it?
talked about it. Yeah, I'll find it.
And so in that same way, you have this other ego develop. And again, I always say that I don't think the ego is a bad thing. It's just, are you in balance with it? You have to be in balance. So this card is definitely not balanced. And you could see on that guy right there on the right, he's got that chain around his neck, but it's loose. He could take that off. And he's kind of, like we said in other episodes, he's like, oh, what's going on here? It's my addiction. It's this devil. Look, it's the deep state.
Blame the devil, victim consciousness.
Yeah, exactly. And then the next card after that is the Tower. And I think the Tower symbolizes
this other,
it's another wake up. It's another death. It's because you build this big tower and you're like, oh, I know all these things and I'm the best. And then you realize that no, maybe you don't know. And the crown gets shot off your head by this bolt of lightning, which signifies, I think, natural law in my estimation. And you're just cast down from this tower from your high place. And then the next card is, I believe, the Star, which is a beautiful card. And it's just like the Temperance card again. You're coming back into balance, but now you see the heavens above you and you have the star, right? And everything's coming into focus and it's clear. And you have one, and now she's knelt, right? And no longer the wings. It's just naked truth. One knee on the land, one foot in the water. But instead of holding it to yourself, she's pouring it. She's helping everything. She's in balance with nature, living in accordance with natural law.
Yeah, really great breakdown there.
Well, thank you. I have a podcast called The Terrible Podcast. And if you'd like to hear more things, because I've talked about that and more with my lovely host, Ashley, who's been on an episode of this show also, go to terrible.com and check it out. TAROTBULL.com.
That's terrible.
It's terrible.
So, yeah. So balance on the flip side of death is life, and after coming out of those experiences, your actions are totally different. Just like I was talking about the testimony that I had to write. It was like, this is the me that I was, and this is the me that I am now after seeing the way that I used to be. You look from a new point of view.
And I think the thing we could stress here is that you never, not never. So I try to never, I could say it this way. I try to never think that I know it all. I try to keep my mind very open, because I was wrong so many times in the past, and I don't want to be a slave to a fear because because of a belief that I hold. So I'm always trying to keep my mind open. And that's really why I like the Star, because you see the stars up there and you let the stars be your guide in a way. nature.
I think I got the star in a recent pull for
Ooh.
myself. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good card. Star
Yeah.
chord. It's funny because in I forget which casino it is, but in Atlantic City there's a casino, and anytime you go to a casino, they give you a member card and you can put it in the slot machine, and they're called like the MGM whatever card. In one casino, it's called the Star card, the Star card, and it blew my mind when I got into tarot. I'm like, oh my god, it's the Star card they're giving to people. Like, yeah,
Holy smokes.
I know.
Crazy.
Everyone gets the star at that casino. It's great. They're all the star. They're the star of the show.
The star of the show.
Exactly. And then I guess we wanted to talk about we kind of talked about living with a new point of view, kind of like a cancer survivor. We talked about that stuff. But we did want to talk about the seasons also, because that's another reflection that we could see in its evidence to us in nature of different cycles. So this
kind of really leads into the stuff that we were going to talk about with the crow episode, because of nature, and episode 394.
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah.
And we could just briefly touch on this. It's like your winter right now. It's perfect. This will air probably in April, but we're in springtime. We just came out of the winter, and here in Connecticut it's still cold. It was like almost freezing last night. A lot of places, I'm sure, like Colorado, are really cold. So but we're coming out of it now, so you get those days where you can feel the spring and the warmth coming, and it reminds you of summer, and you're just excited. So I think that's really what this represents. And it's great that we talked about the tarot, because summer is the time when you're just like, it's like the devil card. You're like, yeah, this is great, man, everything's fine. And then it gets cold, and the tower comes and it gets smashed, and you got to go back into the cold again. So but yeah, I wanted to touch on the seasons, because I think it just shows that you see all the death in the winter, all the trees lose their leaves, and all the grass dies and everything. The snow comes and covers everything in most places. And then but every year spring comes, right? It gets warm and life is again. So there's another piece of evidence to,
and as above so below. Like, if you're afraid of dying, like, why? Because everything dies and then comes back.
Yeah. And even the leaves that fall off the trees, they get absorbed by the soil to get sucked back up by the leaves,
By the trees, yeah.
I mean, sucked back up by the trees to become a leaf again or whatever, so right. It's just a cycle.
Yeah. I can't remember if it was in a crow episode. I don't remember if it was the Bach saga or another episode, but people would be cremated and would want to be like their ashes to be poured under a tree, so that the tree could then like absorb their ashes back in. And it's just like growth from ashes. It's like the phoenix rising out of the ashes. It's like,
ooh, I'm glad you said that, because I forgot. I wanted to mention this on the death episode, because we had a conversation about what to happen to our body after we die. Like, do you want to get buried, cremated, whatever? And I told you I wanted to have a sky burial, and you're like, what the hell is a sky burial? It's allegedly Lakota Indians, what they used to do. And actually you could see this in what's the name of that show? It'll come back to me. But anyway, they build like a scaffold, maybe 6 feet high or whatever, not even that high. And then they just put your body there on a mountain, and they let the birds eat you.
Lovely.
Yeah, they keep you up high enough so the land predators won't get you, but then like the vultures or whatever will come and get you. Yeah, I was like, that's what I want. And actually, when I talked about my friend that had passed away, I think 2 weeks ago, we talked about who died in the motorcycle accident in 2019. And when he was cremated and we spread his ashes, because he had a boat, so we all went out, a couple of us with boats and his family and stuff, and we spread his ashes in Long Island Sound. And I was telling everybody, I'm like, if I go, or when I go, I'm like, I want a sky burial. I was telling them, and because I've known for a while that's what I want. Yeah, so I was trying to lighten the mood a little bit, but it was I think I just want to bring that full circle. So everybody, I want a sky burial.
All right. Sounds good. But in episode 394 of Crow, it's just Jason and Crow, and they were talking about it was basically sky clock nature stuff, but they went through all the sun deities in the world, and basically Crow is just saying, I don't get why people can be so narrow-minded to think that your particular religion, like the almighty creator waited until your particular religion was going to be prominent, and all the other people before that, oh, they were wrong, so they're just going to go to hell. He doesn't say that literally, but you know what I mean? Like,
I've heard it before.
Basically, that's what he's saying. It's like every single every single grouping in the world had a name for the sun. He's like, are there like 20,000 suns? You know, like, he didn't say this, but you know, I'm paraphrasing. You know, are there 100 suns? No, there's just one. And he's like, ignore what I said about the second sun. Okay. Just for the moment. But yeah, it's like, why would all these different,
there's one visible sun, we'll say.
Right. Yeah. The sun that we can see for sure. Yeah. So, and then the fact that people assume that, oh, all these things are, all automatically it's evil. Well, did the Vatican or whatever turn it into a negative thing by just isolating it? Like he said, you have the spectrum of the 7 colors of the rainbow. And then you just decide, oh, we're just gonna do purple. Like, everybody, it's purple. Everything's purple. And it's like you're excluding all the other things. Well, that's what religions did. They said, oh, well, this religion's going to take red. That one's going to take purple. That one's going to take green. That one's going to take yellow. And then it's like, no, yellow's the best. Yellow's right. No, orange is right. No, green is right. And it's like, none of you are right. You're all right.
Yeah. And the analogy he used about the purple glasses was great, because he said, if you put on those purple glasses, maybe only purple is going to look good to you. And then if somebody else has on those yellow glasses, from their point of view, yeah, yellow is the best. Purple looks like shit. I mean, you know, if you have yellow sunglasses on, purple looks like shit. So yeah, exactly. And that's where we get these divisions. Could it be?
And we talked about divisions in a couple of other episodes.
11.
But I don't remember. Maybe Brandon does.
11.
Oh, did we?
Oh, wait. No, we did talk about division. Maybe it was 10.
Yeah, I don't remember, but go back if you want to hear those discussions.
But yeah, that's a lot of what Crow was saying. That's what I came across. Came across. Back in my latter years, when I decided I was going to become an agnostic fella, because I saw the similarities and I realized it at the end of the day, it was just sun worship. And then I was like, oh, like you said, this is all bullshit. I kind of had that moment too. And I was like, whatever. And then I just went off into the world to do my thing and didn't care about it for a while. But yeah, I mean, it really was an incredible episode, guys. You should definitely check it out if you're into that kind of stuff. You know, they ask a lot of questions, and Crow talks a lot of stuff that he normally wouldn't say when he doesn't want to piss people off, I guess we'll say.
Yeah. So we're getting to the, as Crow would say, the top of the second hour.
Yeah, we are.
So basically, just to tie up this episode, just the last couple of things that Crow was talking about in his episode 394 were kind of interesting. So one of the things he talked about were plants and how they evolve into their environment. And I'll let Brandon talk about this because he liked the story.
Yeah, well, basically what he talks about is how they wanted to grow bananas in Japan. And Japan gets very cold in the winter or something. And I don't exactly remember, and they weren't able to do it. But what they did was they took a banana, which is just the seed of these bananas, and they froze it. and then they thought it out. And then because what the seed went through and it experienced and it got to know, the seed got to know a cold. Now they're able to grow these bananas in Japan.
Right.
And these bananas in Japan, they're able to do that now.
Japanas, like you were saying. Was that what you said?
What was it? Oh yeah, Japanas. So they're able to grow Japanas and bachans. They're able to grow bananas in Japan and not have an issue with it. And it's really amazing because, like we were saying, as above, so below. If you take that and put it to a human, I mean, that's just a banana. Imagine what a human can do. We've talked about people like Wim Hof, the Iceman, this guy who climbed Mount Everest in shorts and a t-shirt with no oxygen. And he was able to just like we were talking about at the beginning of the episode, when you get this fight or flight dump, he was able to harness and control certain aspects of his body that not many people are able to do. And we've heard these stories before, like the chi masters that are able to start fire with their hands, just by, there's a video. I mean, maybe it's fake, who knows? But if it's fake, then it's a problem. I feel that we are capable, because this realm, again, like we always say, isn't what we're told, that we're capable of all these people call superhuman powers. They make these movies and call these people mutants, but I think that I think we have it. And it's weird. That reminds me, I've always had this, as far as I can remember, maybe I was even like 6 or 7. 7 is when I really started to get conscious and like ask myself these crazy questions, like, who am I? What is life?
Wow.
But I always had this thing in my brain, because we'd go on a lot of road trips and I'd always look out the side window, check everything out. And I always had this idea that I could like cut things with my eyes. Like I could have lasers come out of my eyes and cut things, So it reminds me of this mutant power.
Yeah.
I wonder if I was onto something there.
You might be.
But anyway,
you are he.
Just a little oversharing. I'll try not to dwell on that too much. I don't want to cut things in half with my eyes. By mistake, I mean,
a piece of fruit. That would be useful.
That would be pretty, there you go. All right. Maybe I have something to attain to now. I'm cutting fruit with my eyes, man. They definitely stick me in a padded room.
Yeah, they might.
I just cut my way out. Anyway.
You would. But what you were talking about reminds me of the 100 monkey experiment that Crow talks about too. So like, just like you were saying, like, we go through things, animals go through things, a plant can go through things and experience and know. So then the next time around, it knows how to deal with it. That's just, he said that he called that evolution, like real evolution, not the lie that we've been fed, right? But that leads us on to just the last point, which is spiritual evolution.
Well, one thing I just wanted to define really what the 100 monkeys experiment is. I'm sure most people are familiar with it, but basically they could train monkeys to do something, or monkeys, on an island somewhere that are isolated, learn how to do something, and then monkeys around the world start to exhibit the same behavior, like they can figure it all out, is really what it gets down to.
Amazing.
Yeah,
it's really amazing.
Yeah, and
it's like an inner knowing that doesn't just belong to the one monkey who experienced it or the tribe of monkeys who experienced it, but because of that knowing, and because I don't know, because I think we're all connected, just like the movie Avatar, we're all connected to source. So now that knowing gets transferred to all the other beings of that likeness, I would say, I guess.
Yeah, it's like the way a computer update works, and there's no physical touch involved. So that's really the lie of evolution we were told by Darwin and stuff. That's where, that's all through like sexual selection and all this stuff. It's like, well, but was it really? In this case, it disproves that theory, or that angle of it anyway.
Right. So in tying it all back all the way to the beginning, where I read the quote in the Bhagavad Gita, Crow said something toward the end of the episode that all resonated. It just all made sense, but he was basically saying that, and I think we briefly talked about this in one of our recent episodes, but like created things have an ending, but that doesn't mean the thing goes away, because you can't make energy disappear. So just like Bhagavad Gita was saying, like, yeah, you can die, but you're not really dead, because the spirit or the consciousness within you is still there somewhere, right? It just becomes something else. So it's like it comes back into this realm if it has to come back, right? If you didn't ascend in some way and learn all your lessons, right? So yeah, that was interesting. And then one thing he said, which kind of blew my mind, and I may be not saying it right or paraphrasing it, but he said something to the effect about, mentioned the children of the sun, and said that beings who had become so highly realized in their evolutionary cycle became what is called the sun. And I was just like, what? Like enlightened, perhaps? Could it be?
Yeah. And it could it be that they evolved to the next level of consciousness now?
Exactly.
And they're light beings there to help us on our paths. And what you said really reminded me, the other cycle that we didn't talk about that's right in front of our eyes is the sleep cycle. Every night we go to bed, we die to this world, we have dreams that are just as real as our waking consciousness. They can make us, allegedly you can die in your dreams, because it's so powerful. Wow. I know I've woke up sweating before. I've woke up anxious, all these things.
Kicking something. Yeah.
And what happens when you wake up? Your dreams die. But do they go away? No, you're there. You're here. You remember some of them. And then another time you can experience them again. And then when you went to bed, you woke up the next day, So that's another cycle. And it's another good place to say goodnight to all these lovely people.
Yeah.
Thank you guys in the chat so much. All right, man. All right, man. What do we say to the good people, Sharon?
That if you're not oversharing,
then you're totally not caring. So make sure you overshare on. Thank you guys so much. And we'll talk to you next week, allegedly.